Okay. Alright, alright, good. Everything's functioning properly. Alright. What am I doing today? I don't know. I'm doing the same thing I do every day. Try to take over the fretboard. Okay. What are we doing this time? We're doing the same thing we do every time. Gonna take over the fretboard. Okay. So I think I left off last time I was on where I got the Nashville numbers here, what I'm calling permanent modal numbers. The underused, underutilized, disrecognized approach, which is actually from a functional playing standpoint, the best one, as we have been stating and demonstrating, not by the fact that I'm the best guitar player, but by just the facts of the argument. If you look at the fretboard, it's clearly the best way to approach it, okay? That from just a logical standpoint. I'm not saying I'm like, okay, so so we have the Nashville numbers 1 through 7 that are mapped up on the bottom, and then on the top of the screen, we've got the left-hand side of each fret giving the point in terms of Nashville number, nodal point from a letter perspective, note number, and then the note point, and then the second side is going to give us the distance in terms of first note half steps from the node that we're focused on, which in this case is Nashville number 5, Mixolydian, represented with an X, and then it's going to give you the modal half step, meaning difference from that point in the collection of notes that we're working in, which happens to be the collection of notes around the key of C, and then it's going to give you the standard last part interval distance from that point. But the cleanest way to see it is just with the numbers here, and if we can memorize all of the different relationships from a Nashville number modal point, then all of that is transferable to all 12 collections of 7 notes. And that doesn't exclude us from, by the way, as I'm working on now in my current course thing, it doesn't exclude us from looking at the notes that are in the ocean. The argument against this might say, oh, well, that means that you're only working with 7 notes and there's actually 12 notes and you're ignoring the 5 notes that are in the ocean. It's like, no, but when we look at the notes that are not in the 7-note collection, I don't want to change my perspective to then look at those notes as if they're in a different collection. See, I mean, the whole point, I'm just trying to work this out in my mind because this is what I'm currently working on in my course. Because the whole point is that if I'm visualizing what I'm doing as this is the shape that I'm in and whatever point is the actual center point, like in this case the Mixolydian, that's my tonic in essence. That's the thing I'm going to return to, or that's in my mind what I'm feeling like is going to be home in my mind, what I'm trying to make home the tonic point. Then every time I build a chord, I don't want to if I build a chord around something that's in this structure and even the notes are all the same, obviously I don't want to rename all of the structure, right? I don't want to rename all of the positions, which you have to do in a scale degree point of view. That's a problem. Plus, if I start on something that's in the ocean here, like I build a chord off of one of the ones what I'm calling in the ocean, this is what I would call in the Aeolian Ocean, because it's it's next to the Aeolian. I always go to the left, right? It's in the Aeolian Ocean. So then if I go off of that, then again, I don't want to basically shift the entire shape up in my mind to call that the one of an entirely different collection of notes, when in reality, from a functional standpoint, I know that that's not in the collection of notes that is my main point of focus. I want to recognize that and say, no, I'm building a chord off of one of the ocean notes, because that helps me to understand why I might be doing that from a functional standpoint, meaning it might be helping me to lead into this note, right? The 7th, the Locrian in this case. If I rename that to the 1 and then I build a chord off of it, it doesn't give me any functional information with the song. Did the song change? Am I now thinking of myself not in the collection of notes around the key of C with some kind of tonic being the 5, but now I'm thinking of it in the collection of notes around C sharp, and I've changed the collection of notes? No. If not, I mean, if I am, then yeah, then shift the whole thing up in your mind, and now we've moved to a different collection of notes, right? But if I haven't, in my mind, if I haven't shifted the collection of notes, but I'm just playing something that I know to be outside that collection of notes, then to build the chord, I don't want to have to build it off of reimagining the collection of notes, right? I want to build it off of the same collection of notes that have the same relative positions, the same numbers. I just think functionally from a playing standpoint and from writing down your information, that gives you more information about the song itself, right? The chords aren't just like these static things that have they're not giving you any meaning about how they're being used in what you're trying to do, which is to play a song, right? If you just say, well, this is a chord, and it has it's not giving you any information other than it doesn't give you any relevant information about the context of the song you're playing in, right? See, that's not the most efficient way. That's not the most efficient way to do it. I feel like that's my argument. Okay, I might not be. My argument isn't that I'm the best player in the world, and therefore you should listen to me because watch me rip. No, I mean, okay, that's an argument, but it's not really. Anyway. Okay, so let's. I'm gonna go to my joke first. I don't know what I did with the joke, and then we'll go into this thing again. All right. What was I doing this time? I don't know. I came up with something last night on the phrase, "Don't put all your eggs in one basket," and then I was thinking about Joe Biden's catastrophe in Afghanistan. I mean, you watch what President Trump, honestly, you got to be honest about it, Like you watched Joe Biden's pull out of Afghanistan looking like the classic, pull out in like Vietnam or something where like people are grabbing on we left all of our stuff there. We look like complete clowns, and it was ridiculous. I mean, it's just ridiculous versus what's going on now. It seems like a pretty, at least well thought out, at least a little bit of thought has been gone into it. That's not completely like optics and political. It's like, I mean, it seems like there's at least some. I mean, it makes sense to me. Like from an observer, it's like Joe Biden's pull out of Afghanistan versus like what we're seeing now. I mean, come on, like. It's it's crazy. Like, and the difference is pretty crazy. It seems like to me. I don't know. So that's my rant. The comparison of Joe Biden's policy versus what we're doing now. I think Biden's policy was a little worse, like a little bit, as an understatement. That's kind of like an understatement. I'm being like, understatey when I say that, like slightly wanting, and it was slightly wanting in its execution of strategy. Okay, anyways, the egg strategy, Biden's legacy, President Biden's legacy. You ever notice how sometimes you've got to be really specific when giving advice to certain people? Like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's a phrase most adults understand, right? You say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You assume that what the person is going to do is say, oh, what I need is multiple eggs or baskets. I need like multiple baskets that I'm going to watch over so that like if one basket there's a problem, then I have diversification, right? It's a diversification terminology. But when Joe Biden was president, that was too complicated. It's too complicated. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You tell him that, and what does he do? He leaves all the eggs on the desert floor. He dumps the basket out. You idiot. That's not what you're trying to do. You need more baskets that you take care of. When we say don't put all your eggs in one basket, you don't just dump the eggs onto the desert floor in Afghanistan, still warm from the taxpayer chicken. Those are our eggs, you moron. And then not just anywhere, right in front of the wolves, for crying out. You're gonna dump you dump the basket out in front of the wolves, the Taliban wolves, for crying out. And who then flew off in American, they fly off in American-made helicopters using American-made rifles, guarding American-made stolen eggs that were pretty easy to steal because he dumped the basket out on the desert floor right in front of him. So it was like watching someone drop the world's most expensive Easter basket in a war zone, for crying. At that point, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Was too advanced. It was too advanced. You know, you've got to get really detailed with some people. You got to break it down in a way that you cannot possibly misinterpret what is being said. So we had to start with something simple, like, don't hand all your eggs to the enemy. How about that? How about we start there? And then don't hand all your eggs to the enemy and then bend over in front of them so we can throw them at your butt. How about that? How about you try starting there? Biden didn't just lose the eggs, he practically gift wrapped them. He signed each one, "From Joe with love, P.S. Please don't shoot me with these later," you know? And then, just to top it off, he left the wolves in charge of guarding the hen house. He's like, "Don't worry. Yeah, sure, they're terrorists, but now they're like they're gonna help us out now. Okay, they're gonna help us out. We're gonna put them in charge of the guarding structure." So it was the most expensive going away gift in history, $80 billion in equipment and zero accountability. Meanwhile, Trump comes back in and it's like, all right, let's clean up this omelet, for crying out loud. He's out there saying, we're bringing the eggs home, folks. The best eggs, strong eggs, tremendous shells on these eggs. Tremendous shells we have on these eggs. And honestly, at least now the eggs aren't being guarded by the same people who used to throw them at us. That's not the way you do things for guarding the eggs. Biden's motto was basically, don't put your eggs in one basket, put them on the floor in front of the terrorist. That's not the gist of the saying. Again, I have to come, look, you got to be specific with people like this. You got to be specific. Otherwise, they do the dumbest interpretation that you could possibly imagine when you're trying to give them a clear idiom that has gone down through his, and then they hire the terrorist as your egg security detail. But hey, the good news is the chapter's over. American finally got someone back in the kitchen who knows what to do with an egg besides drop it. So I wrote a song about it. Let's see.
He didn't use a basket, didn't make a plan, left our eggs on the desert sand. Still warm from the taxpayer chicken's nest, laid them down for the Taliban's best. No basket, no plan, just eggs on the floor, and wolves watching, grinning like they wanted more. Those wolves got rifles, flying our birds, laughing imposter, spreading the word. American-made choppers, American-made guns, guarding American eggs under Afghan sun. He didn't use a basket, didn't make a stand, just said good luck with a shaky hand. It's like dropping gold on a minefield plain and hoping nobody feels the pain. No basket, no guard, no fence, no gate, just 80 billion down, sealed by fate. He gift wrapped each egg, signed from Joe, said P.S. please don't shoot me though. Then hired the wolves for security pay and gave them the keys to the whole buffet. Now Trump walks in like a cook at dawn, says we're cleaning this omelet and moving on. We're bringing the eggs home strong and sound, tremendous shells, the best around. No baskets broken, no shells in vain, just stars and stripes in the frying pan flame. At least now the eggs ain't guarded by those who used to throw them. That's how it goes. America's back in the kitchen again, turning that mess to a meal that wins. Bite and drop 'em, the wolves took the prize. Now we're frying hope under freedom skies. The egg strategy, a joke but true. No basket, no plan, no clue.
All right. You got to be specific with people. You got to be specific, or they give you the worst interpretation. It's like you tell someone something like a Joe Biden how to do something, and it's like you're giving information to like one of those, what's it with like the genie that's like but it's always works out wrong. Like you're going to the oracle and you're like telling it to do something and it gives you the worst like the monkey paw thing, you know, where you like make a wish on the monkey paw and then it gives you like the worst, a Twilight Zone. He's basically like the Twilight Zone. It's like, why don't you not put all your eggs in one basket? And then he finds the worst possible interpretation, like the Twilight Zone, and then he's like, that's what you told me to do. Well, no, you know what I meant, you freaking, okay, let it go. So anyway, so we're at the Nashville number 5, and then I'm gonna do what I'm calling the lean back shape now, down this way. So we're gonna do a lean back shape, defining it by the second modal half step or third scale degree in this quadrant. So 5, 6, 7. So I'm looking for the second modal half step or third scale degree down here. Now there's one back here, but it happens to be right here because we're on this string, and this is we're on this string. We're on the G string. The fourth one down from the top of the guitar is how I like to count it. Where are my glasses? These are not my right glasses. I need my other. Hold on a second. Wait a second. Ow. Okay. All right. Yeah, okay. So we're on the G string, and so the point is that normally the second modal half step or third scale degree would be back here in this quadrant. But because we're crossing the fault line and this tectonic plate shifted to the right, we have it over here. So that's actually on the axis, and it's not in a particular quadrant. But I'm going to assume that it's in this quadrant because it would be in that quadrant if it wasn't for the fault line. So I'm still going to define this as a lean back shape defined by the second modal half step or third scale degree in the lower back left quadrant, even though it's on the axis because of the fault line shift. All right, so that's how I'm going to name it. All right, so how do I get to that? So it's the third from Nashville number 5, which in the collection of notes around the key of C happens to be a G, is going to be how many notes away? Because it's a major mode, the second modal half step or third scale degree is going to be 4 notes away. There's 5 notes between the strings this way because of the fault line, and then back here to 4. So that's going to be the second modal half step, third scale degree. So it's right underneath, and that's kind of, again, like it seems easy to know that, but it's totally different because normally, obviously, if I was anywhere else and I go right underneath it, like over here, I would have the third modal half step or fourth scale degree would be a perfect fourth, and the third is going to be back here. So it's, that relationship is interesting. mean, we got to kind of like really focus on that. Okay, so it's right underneath. I could bar it off, which is pretty cool because, again, like the thing I started playing off of the Aeolian because the rock and roll shape, and possibly I'm just saying this because I think other people. I'm trying to mull it over in my mind, and other people probably have the same thing, because this is the rock and roll shape in the middle from the pentatonic, which happens to be kind of a minor shape. So I'm used to having the third that distance away, which is 3 frets up, and I'm used to having the fourth underneath it. And when I moved to a major like C major up here, it always kind of bothered me because now the third seems quite a ways away from if I'm used to the minor third. And then wait a sec, I'm over here. It would be over here. Yeah, no, that's right. The third seems quite a distance away up here, and when I go to the third back here, I have to reach back. So you end up with this, which means I can't just bar it off. So, which was kind of annoying to me, because then but when I'm down on these two strings, it's actually kind of the relationships that kind of similar to the minor relation. Well, you don't have the third, because the minor you have the perfect fourth and then the fifth right there, isn't it? But down here you have a weird relationship with the third right underneath it. And then because of the fault line here, what about the fifth? Where's the fifth? Well, if I'm on the 7, I go 2 up from that. 7 would be 1, 2, because there's only 7 notes. So the 2 is the Dorian, which is the 4th modal half step, 5th scale degree, which is 7 notes away. But because it's shifted up here, again, it's shifted this way, 5, 6, 7. So you would think that under normal shape conditions, the 7 would be there. But no, that's an ocean note off the Mixolydian, because that's the 6 note away tritone. So it's back here, it's up here. So I can kind of toggle between these two. To get the full chord. This is the 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. Which is an arpeggio. I should use that term more deliberately. It's an important thing, I guess. We can arpeggiate. So now I'm kind of leaning, even though it looks like I'm leaning forward, I'm still defining this as a lean back quadrant, remember, because this is in the back quadrant, but it's shifted underneath to the axis because of the fault line. All right. So by the way, so what would I call this chord normally? Well, if I build it off of the Mixolydian, Mixolydian's a major mode, so normally it would be a G. It happens to be a G because the Nashville number 5 Mixolydian in the collection of notes around the key of C happens to be a G, so it would be a G major triad. But I'd rather call it something from the Mixolydian note. So I'd rather call it a three note Nashville number 5 Mixolydian, or I can call it a Nashville number 5 Mixolydian 4 modal half step, or 4 divided by 2 modal whole step, which I think is another way to say it. And you could call it a 5-2 end point of the chord, 5-2 modal range chord, or a Mixolydian Dorian modal range chord, or from a color system, magenta to a spring green modal range chord. All right. So then I could put that 5 up top, and you get that shape, which is that nice A shape, which is interesting. So that's like the A if I leaned back this way. So normally, like that A shape, I see it. It's kind of funny, like again, to try to define these chords, because if I put the root out here, that would be our normal kind of A-shaped G major chord, our bar chord, that we would build off of this note. But if I'm trying to see this is the root, you can still see it as kind of like this would be the lean forward chord. But now I want to define this as the root, and this is the 4th modal half step or 3rd. So when I see this A shape, I'm actually thinking of it, I'm defining it more as a lean back chord, because again, I'm seeing the 4th modal half step 3rd, which happens to be Nashville number 7, a B, would be back here, right? So I'm kind of thinking like, that's like the lean back quadrant, even though it's on the axis. And then this would be a lean forward from this root. But if I think of that as the root, lean back. Okay. So muy interesante, like an Ella freaking Fonte. So if I'm doing that, like I could grab, if I'm grabbing this going forward, then I've got another 3rd out here, 12, 13, 14, 12, 13, 14, 15. 12, 13. No, it's here. I don't play up here that much because, again, obviously I'm running into I don't have a cutout, so. All right. So, okay, so I have another one. I have another 4th modal half step 5th scale degree, which happens to be Nashville number 2, which in the collection of notes around the key of C is a D back here. So I could say boom, boom, boom. Now this, of course, you can also see as like the A shape, if you could bar that last one off. But you can't really do it oftentimes because these are getting in the way. So like if you did it this way and then you were able to bar it off just because you really want to get that one down there, you could do that, but my fingers won't fit way up here. You can do that if you weren't way up on the 12th fret. But if I'm seeing it as this is the root. So if I'm down here, I'm trying to think of just how I could noodle around. I know I get, like criticism, he likes to play these little fast things and like to show off or something. That's just what I like to do. So I like to try to come up with patterns, and I feel like I can play the open note, which happens to be Nashville number 7. So it's like, okay, like if I put my finger up here, how can I play this little pattern underneath it and then end like with this shape? So I could end with this shape, like I could play this shape like this. And I know that if I have my finger, if I have my pointer finger here, then I can play pinky here, and then ring here, and then pointer here. And then I can finish by putting down my fingers this way to finish it off, right? To get back into the shape, which I'm saying I'm going to end on what I'm visualizing as a G major chord or a Mixolydian triad, a 3-note Mixolydian triad. So or you can try to do it with this finger. So now, which is more natural to get to this shape, particularly if you're not on this area of the guitar. But then I have to use my pinky for both here and then move it back. So I know that's not the cleanest. I mean, I feel like that can be fun to do. I'm not great at it up here because I don't practice it up here. But I'm going to practice. That's the practice session. But all right, anyway, moving on. Let's go to, so I had this one. This is probably the standard shape right here. That's like the standard shape for the lean back. Not the A shape, because I kind of see that as part of this shape. So you can maybe anyways. So I'm gonna focus on these bottom strings because that's why I'm not as good. So, okay, so now I'm going to say, let's add the next one, which would be the 7. So 6 modal half step, 7th scale degree. So if I was on the last note for the triad was Nashville number 2, I could just go 2 modal half steps up, which would get to the 4. So there's one here. That might be the easiest thing to do. And then I drop this to, or I pick it up here. But let's just think about it real quick. I can toggle between those two like I was doing already. All right, let's think about it real quick though. We're going to say, okay, well, what would I call that? Well, I'm on Nashville number 5, which is the Mixolydian, which is a in the collection of notes around the key of C, happens to be a G, so it could be a G7, not a G major 7, because the 6th modal half step or 7th scale degree is not 11 notes away as it is on the 2 other major modes, that being the Nashville number 1 Ionian, Nashville number 4 Lydian, but instead it's 10 notes away, which is the same distance for all the minors, Aeolian, Dorian, Phrygian as well as the crazy Locrian, which of course are the Nashville numbers of 2, 3, 6, and 7. So it's more like so that's why it gives it its bluesy flavor. That's that 10 note away distance gives it the bluesy flavor. Okay, so that's cool. So then if I was to count that out, and I'm trying to pick up this 4, it should be 10 notes away then from notes half steps. There's 5 notes between the strings here and then 10. Note that's different than the shape up here. Why? Because we crossed the fault line. So there's a distance between the fault lines. So instead of it looking like this, when you're looking like your roots up here and 2 strings down would be 10 note distance. Now it looks like this. Why? Because this tectonic plate shifted to the right. Remembering my general visualization of this, and you can test this out yourself, but just from my thinking, if I'm up here and I'm looking down here, I'm thinking this tectonic plate shifted and this one stayed, this whole tectonic plate stayed stable. If I'm down here and I'm looking up here, then I'm going to imagine my tectonic plate where my root is stayed the same, and this tectonic plate up here is the one that moved to the left. I just think that's the easiest way to visualize it. So if I see this shape and I'm looking down, I'm like, oh, it would be like that, but there was a fault line, so it shifted up like this, right? But if I'm looking from here up, I'm saying, oh, it would be like this from here up, except this top fault line shifted to the left. Do you see that? So I'm just changing the perspective of where my home is in terms of who moved. Most likely they both moved. If you looked at the tectonic plate and they shift against each other, who's the one that moved? I don't know. You could probably figure it out. I don't know. I don't really care. But from a human perspective, the other guy moved. I've been here the whole time. I've been in the same position the whole time. The other guy moved. Okay. I think that's easier just to, from okay. So, in any case, I'd rather call it a 4-note Nashville number 5 Mixolydian chord, or a Nashville number 5 Mixolydian 6 modal half step chord, or 6 divided by 2 3 modal whole step. Nashville number 5 Mixolydian 3 modal whole step chord, or from endpoints, I would call it Nashville number 5/4 modal range chord. Just take every other note, as there's only 7 going around the horn to get to that 4, meaning you go 5, 6, 7, and then around the horn, because there's only 7, to 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop at 4 because it's a 5/4 modal range chord. Or you can call it a Mixolydian Lydian modal range chord, or from a color system, magenta to blue modal range chord. I forgot the distance in terms of the color system. I'm kind of dropping the color system on terms of distance. I should get that back to that because that's important, obviously. But I think it's like 10 notes away is like, I don't know, fuchsia. It was like fuchsia. I don't know. I'll get back to that later. But so that's the idea. Now, okay. So now I know when I'm on the thing with the Mixolydian is that, now I think this is another reason why it's good to use this method, because notice anytime I have the two L modal points together, there's a clash. There's going to be a fight. Right? Because they don't get along, right? So that's the 7/4, meaning it's the Locrian Lydian. You put Locrian and Lydian in the same room, it's like I don't know, putting two people that don't get along in the same room. I'm trying to think of 2 people that would if you put them like a Kardashian and one of their ex. I don't know. I watched a thing about the Kardashian curse or something. That was kind of funny. I had not seen that before. I'm really, but so I don't know anything about that. But you put 2 people that don't get along. That's the Locrian and Lydian, the 2 L's, and then they fight. So that happens to happen when you're in the Mixolydian node, when you add the 7, if you also have the 5. So you could think about dropping the 5 to not have the tritone, because there's going to be a 6-note distance or tritone between the 2 L's, the Locrian Lydian, the 7/4, 4/7. Doesn't matter if it's 7/4, 4/7. You put those 2 together, you got a 6-note distance one way or the other. You can call it a clockwise distance, a counterclockwise distance. It's 6 either way. Okay? So then anyway, so we're going to say, let's go on these 3. So I had these. And then I'm going to drop the 4th modal half step, 5th modal whole step, which is the second 2 Dorian. So if I just played these 3, so now I've got root 5 and then the 6th modal half step 7th. And there's tension between these two. But what if I drop the 4th modal half step 5th, which is natural number 7, a B, and I'm like, now let's just pick up the 7 like that. Oh, wait a sec. I can't, then I don't have the 2. Let's put the 2 on top to do that. Put the 2 on top. Okay. So now the 5's on top, but I'm not going to play the 7. I'm just going to mute it. That's ugly fingering. So I'm intentionally muting the 7 versus non-muting the 7. I can bar this off like that. The 7, which is the 5th modal half step 4th. 4th modal half step 5th. Okay. I can play it like that. Now there's one behind it, of course, back here. So if I'm doing a lean back kind of thing, like this, I can drop the root maybe and go back there and pick it up. Like, what would that look like from a fingering standpoint? Be like, but then so I can go like this. And then root, put my finger, my pinky down, leave my pinky down, and then walk back to that, like that, just to pick it up in the mix. And then go back to this as my home base. Wait a sec. No. Leave my... fingers back into. All right. So let's say we had another. So we had the 4 back there. What if and then I had a 4 here. I got one out here. So I could like grab that. I'm probably not going to be able to grab this 5 at the same time. So I'll probably have to drop that. Maybe I can grab, it might be easier to grab this one. Let's give it a shot on that. That's going to be going way up past the 12th fret, which is a problem for me. But so we got this. It's going to be on the 15, 12, 13, 14, 15, 12, 13, 14. Ugh. Yeah, that's not gonna work for me too easily. It's doable. Yeah, no, that's too far past. I need to cut out for that kind of thing, for that kind of maneuver. All right. I don't know. Let's say the last, what I got, 9, that's the 7, 9. I'm just going to noodle around for the last bit here. I'm trying to go back and forth between like Mixolydian, major and minor Mixolydian. And I was kind of thinking like, if I put my pink, because it's kind of cool, like I was noticing yesterday that like if I was on the Dorian, like I like this pattern of going boom, 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 and then back to the open bit on the minors. So it's like but let's do it like on the Dorian, it would be. I like that. Like that as a baseline thing, and then you could do that on the Aeolian, where it's just the same thing. I'm just going back, boom. I could do that up here. Like, the other thing I was doing, I always do that, but then I was like, I can hold down this D right here, and then I have 2 Ds, and then try to do the same thing with a double D. So I put a D across the whole thing. Then 3 Ds right there. D, D, D. But then you can do the same thing with the open A, right? Which is like, so then I can walk this one back. My pick is getting greasy. All right. Maybe you should. All right. 1, 2, 3. Oh, man. Oh, what is happening? Okay. So then I can walk this back from boom. So it's like boom, boom, boom to open. So that would be like from here. What? But then I realized I can play, again, obviously the same thing, because now I have an A right there. So that would be the double A. Should be the same note. But then I can play that as I walk it back like this. So then you can do it. You can also do it with the G down here, which I like to do. So you have the open G, same pattern. So if it was a minor, now I'm not in the minor key, but if it was a minor key, it would be boom, 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 here, like that. So when I'm in the minor, it would be. So this would, if I was in the minor, then this position 1, what I call position 1, would be shifted back 2 frets to here, right? That would be position 1. The whole thing would shift back. So. On the minor side, and then I realized, okay, I'm going to try that same trick, but now it becomes more difficult because of the fault line shifted up here. So I have to put, instead of putting my pinky like right underneath it, I got to put it out here, and that kind of messes it up. Because then I have the double G is back here, because instead of here. So then it's a little bit of a reach to get that last one. but then if I'm doing the bluesy thing, I should be able to go back and forth. In essence, at least with this one happens to be the third of the Mixolydian. So that would be the third, like if I'm on the Mixolydian here, the major third is right there and the minor third is right there. So the Nashville number 7 is the third of Nashville number 5. So that means the Aeolian Ocean, or 7 minus, right, the one behind 7, 6 plus Aeolian Ocean, or 7 minus the one behind 7, is going to be the minor. So I should be able to go back and forth kind of between the major and the minor, but then kind of try to end it off like on the major, you know? You know what I mean? So like...